Welcome to the KTPF Reload Show. In case you're wondering what the Reload Show is about, if you haven't heard previous shows, these are the interviews that were conducted by good friends of mine, Steve and Sue Taggart, in the days of the KTPF radio show. Their own radio show ran for just over 4 years, broadcasting every week for over 3 hours. I joined them in the last 18 months of the show's run, but eventually the guys felt they'd just about had enough. It was a monumental effort to keep broadcasting every week for 3 hours. It was a wonderful show. But unfortunately they're no longer involved, and the shows have just sort of sat in the archives, so I thought it would be nice to bring them back to life and bring you the interviews that the guys conducted over those 4 years. They include some of the most interesting people within the world of the paranormal, and some not so well known, but still, nevertheless still very interesting. We even have 1 or 2 rather unusual shows, including a live seance and other things along those lines. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed tonight's show, and this is the KTPF Reload Show. Enjoy.
This program deals with themes of an adult nature and is intended for a mature audience.
You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Talk radio.
You hear us, we hear you.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the KTPF Community Talk Show. My name is Suzanne.
I'm Steve.
And we're here keeping the paranormal friendly. Right, as I said, we are strict for time tonight, so up until after the interview with Mr. Daniken. He is a man that we never thought we'd get on the show, but he's graciously accepted. The Swiss author, best known for his controversial work linking extraterrestrial influences to early human culture, with books such as Chariots of the Gods. Daniken is one of the main figures responsible for popularising the paleo contact and ancient astronaut hypothesis. So we'll be talking to him soon. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back here now on the KTPF Community Talk Show with Eric von Daniken. So, good evening, sir.
Everybody.
Okay, and hope everyone can hear you okay. So, whereabouts are you at the moment? Where are you? Where are you?
Well, I'm sitting in Switzerland, in the high Alps, in the mountains, here in the Bernese Oberlands.
Oh, it sounds good. Okay, so for those that have never heard of you, Mr. Eric, please could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, okay. In the meantime, I'm nearly 80 years old.
Really?
Yes. And in 1968, long time ago, I started with a book called Chariots of the Gods. And Chariots of the Gods was first the bestseller in Germany, in Switzerland, and then around the world. And in Chariots of the Gods, I said, some thousands of years ago, in the deep past, when our forefathers were Stone Age people, some extraterrestrials arrived here on our planet. Now, our Stone Age people could not understand what was going on, so they believed that these extraterrestrials must be some kind of gods. Mm-hmm. Of course, in reality, there are no gods, but our Stone Age people believed that the ETs were gods. And that's how it all started. Mythology, religions, and all kind of mysterious things.
Well, we had a question from Andy in our chat room, and he was wondering what was the first thing you noticed that first suggested that we'd had alien visitation?
Well, I was educated as a strict Catholic in a boarding school in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And there we had to make translations from part of the Bible, from Latin to Greek and Greek to German. Now you have to understand, when I was a boy, around 16 years old, I was a deep believer in God. In the meantime, by the way, I still believe in God. I'm still one of those people who prays every evening. Mm-hmm. But my God of my youth had to have a few minimum qualities. For example, God makes no mistakes. Or God would never use a vehicle in which to move around from point A to point B. God is all over. Or, of course, God does not lie, and God is out of time. God does not have to make an experience, and then he has to wait what the result will be. He should know it in advance. So, this was what I thought when I was young about God. Now, we made translations of the Bible, and I learned in the Bible that God had none of these qualities. God used the vehicle in which to move around from point A to point B. God made mistakes. God didn't know what was going on. He was not out of time. So I had doubts in my own education, in my religious education. And I wanted to find out if other communities in antiquity, they have similar stories as we have them in the Christian world. And that's how old it started all. So the beginning was the Bible. The beginning was doubts in my own education.
Right, okay. So you basically, as you say, you published this book in 1968, which sold many copies. And am I right in thinking it was translated into 28 languages?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Now, there was a lot of criticism about the book, with accusations to say that you made some of the stories up. You were called a blasphemer, a charlatan, even the Antichrist itself at one point by religious people. Do you know why this was, and how did this make you feel?
Well, of course, in the beginning, when I was young, and all these critics made me very, very mad. But that was really when I was young. In the meantime, I really don't care anymore. And of course, most of these critics were absolutely wrong. I am neither an antichrist. I am neither a person who is against God, so to say, an atheist. Of course, I made none of these stories up. Everyone can control what is in Chariots of the Gods.
Yes.
So all these accusations were in fact wrong.
So do you still believe that humankind basically originated on this planet by extraterrestrial intervention?
No, we have evolution, definitely. I believe in the story of Darwin, more or less. We are the product of evolution. But in the beginning, in the very, very beginning, and there I mean some millions and millions and millions of years ago, life on Earth started because it was brought from outside. You see, the first molecule, what we call the DNA, was coming from outside because it was not the product of evolution. And later, in the long course of evolution, there were mixture between some extraterrestrials and between our humans.
Yeah.
And at least in mythology and in religion.
Right, okay. Well, we've got one of your biggest fans in the hub with us at the moment, and I think he's got some questions for you, haven't you, Paul?
Yeah. Good evening, Eric.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. After the publication of the book, being it's over like 48, 47 years now, have you had to change some of your thinking or some of the questions that you actually asked in the book because of new evidence that have come forward?
Well, it's a never-ending story. Since Chariots of the Gods, I have published 33 continuation books. And of course, in every book, I try to bring more indications to support the case. Indications from archaeology, indications from mythology, indications from religion. So really, I could come up with hundreds of examples. What is new since Chariots of the Gods?
Right, okay. Right, well, we have another question for you from the chat room. Andy again. He said, what makes you feel, what do you feel is the best proof of alien visitation?
We have to differentiate between optical proof, I mean hard facts, and between proof out of the old holy writings. First, the hard facts. In Mexico, there is a place called Palenque. And in Palenque is a pyramid that is called the Temple of Inscription. And deep down, under the Temple of Inscriptions, in the year 1952, the Mexican archaeologist, Professor Dr. Rutz, discovered a secret tomb. The tomb was covered with a big slab. I mean big, it's 2.8 meter large and 3.8 meter long. So quite a big one stone block. And on this stone block, you see an engraving. You see a man, he's sitting in a kind of capsule. He's bending forward, almost like a racing motorcyclist. He has something like a mask on his nose, and he clearly uses his two hands to manipulate some controls. He is sitting on a chair, and the heel of his left foot is in a kind of pedal. Now, outside the frame in which he is sitting, you see something like a linking flame. Now, optically, this is a very good indication. Of course, archaeology has always seen this picture from a different point of view. In the beginning, archaeologists said, well, it simply represents a ruler with the name of Pakal. And this is true. It shows Pakal. Pakal was the second ruler of the city of Palenque. And in archaeology, they said Pakal is falling into the open mouth of a monster. So he's falling into the earth. And what comes out of his chest is just something like the living tree. Now, in the meantime, since 1952, since this was discovered until today, in the archaeological literature, we have 14 different possible explanations. And the newest one, made by Professor Stewart, and Stewart is the best epigraph. Epigraph means the professors who are able to translate Maya writing. Now, Professor Dr. Stewart says, now, it all has to do with cosmos. It is, in fact, Pakal, the second last ruler. But Pakal is not falling into the open mouth of a monster. He is going out of our planet, out from the Earth, out through the solar system. So the situation in explanation has changed. That's just the one part. The other part, we have, for example, in ancient Indian mythology, we have large books called the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata has several different volumes. And in the 5th volume, it's called the Mausala Purva. There they clearly describe space cities. They say that there were 3 cities surrounding the Earth. The cities had different colors. Out of these cities, smaller vehicles descended to our planet. The old Indians called these vehicles the Vimanas. Out of the Vimanas, the teachers from heaven came out. And in some cases, some of our humans were taken up there to these cities on the firmament. And these people who were up there described these cities. So in mythology, we clearly have description of space cities surrounding once our planet Earth.
Wow, that's something to take into. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about, why did we call them gods?
Well, it's just a misunderstanding. As I said in the beginning, there are no gods.
Right.
There is only one God, the almighty, gigantic being which nobody can understand, what we call God. And I am one who prays every evening to the God. But our ancestors, some thousands of years ago, they could not make a differentiate. They believed that these beings, because of their power, their lightning, their weapon, their possibility to fly, that these beings must be some gods. So the word the gods in plural is a misunderstanding from the beginning.
So when we look at Jesus Christ, he was a man, people say he was a prophet. Now, he managed to do things that gods would be able to do. He fed 5,000 people, 5 loaves of bread, 2 fishes, healed the sick, walked on water, etc. Could this man, Jesus Christ, be an alien being? And if that's the case, could it also be that all our whole religious experience is just that, extraterrestrial?
No. You see, the story of Jesus Christ is about 2,000 years old from now on.
Okay.
And the Jesus Christ story is the story of the religion, of our Christian believing and our Christian faith. The Jesus Christ figure has nothing to do with the extraterrestrials I'm talking about, because these extraterrestrials were here some 7,000, 8,000 years ago, many thousand years ago, before Jesus Christ worked on Earth.
Okay. Now,
They're 2 complete different things.
Okay. Now, Dave Lloyd's in the chat room. He would like to know, do you think that the theory Anunnaki, came here and upgraded humans to mine gold for them?
Yes, that's true. This story comes from my friend Zachariah Sitchin. He has published several books. He died, unfortunately, 2 years ago, but we were good friends and we know each one very well. And Zachariah Sitchin made translations from the Sumerian cuneiform writings, and he has come up that some beings, which the Sumerians called Anunnaki, were here on Earth, and they used our forefathers as slaves. Our forefathers simply had to work for them, in some cases in a terrible way. I believe that this story is true, and Zachariah Sitchin's translation was correct concerning the Anunnakis.
Okay. Paul?
Eric, going on the Anunnaki and the Sumerians, has anybody still not come up with an explanation why Sumerian writing has been found at Pumapunku in the bowl?
Well, Pumapunku is in South America. Pumapunku is in Bolivia and is 4,000 meters high, 4,000 meters above sea level. I was there many, many times, and Pumapunku is definitely not made by prehistoric people. I mean, with Stone Age tool, you cannot produce Pumapunku. In Pumapunku, you find hundreds of prefabricated blocks. Prefabricated blocks means you need planning, you need writing, you need computers, you need the tools, because all these blocks you can put together like Lego stones. And this does not fit into the Stone Age people. In Pumapunku also you have some terraces, stone block terraces, and they have a weight of 800 tons. Now human at that time, Stone Age people, were able to move 800-ton blocks. Now the mythology, when the first Spanish conquerors came up to Pumapunku, they were Indians around, and the Spanish conquerors asked them, "What is this? What was this?" And the natives said, "It was not us, not our forefathers who made Pumapunku. This was done by the gods in one night." Which gods? What technology? I think still we have it to do with extraterrestrials. They made something which we would call today a base camp. Even mountain climbers go to the Himalaya, they make some base camps which they use for their deposit. So the extraterrestrials, with their technology, they used the base camp so that some of their technical equipment could not be attacked by the animals or by humans or whatever. And later, when the gods, the so-called gods, the extraterrestrials, disappeared, the natives started to construct around this original base camp gigantic temples. So in Pumapunku, we have two different things to differentiate. One is made from the so-called gods, the extraterrestrials, and the rest is made by the humans.
Yeah, Eric again, about the Sumerian writing found near Pumapunku. The writing found near Pumapunku, the Sumerian writing, the cuneiform. It's found in a bowl.
I have to interrupt you shortly. I mind talking to a panel in England or in the United States?
In England.
England. That's why I have a little problems to understand you sometimes. Please excuse me. I'm Swiss. I'm educated in Switzerland. My mother language is German. My second language is French. So my English is absolutely not perfect. So from time to time, I have difficulties to understand you. Now, you said cuneiform in Pumapunku?
Yeah, I've heard a tale that a bowl was found near Pumapunku that had cuneiform writing.
But not in Pumapunku. You see, cuneiform writing belongs to the Sumerian. This is in another part of the world. Pumapunku is South America. It's another continent. Cuneiform writings were never found in Pumapunku or near Pumapunku. Maybe some other writings, but not cuneiform.
Okay. Now, do you believe that alien abductions are happening?
Today?
Yes.
Yes, unfortunately.
For
some decades, I was always against this idea.
Yeah.
I found it completely silly and ridiculous. Why should something abduct humans? Then I met Professor Dr. John Mack. Mack, he died some years ago, and he published a book about abductions. John Mack was a professor at Harvard University in the United States, and he was the Pulitzer Prize winner, an absolute serious personality. And he has written a book about abductions. We have been in discussions many, many times together, and because of John Mack, I believe that really from time to time, some of us are abducted. I don't understand for what reason. I don't know what these extraterrestrials are doing with it. But obviously, something like this takes place, but only in very simple, single cases.
I believe you never believed this before.
No, in the beginning, I never believed it. Before I met John Mack, I said, this is all rubbish. That's all garbage.
Okay. Now, in your book, The Gods Were Astronauts, you look at the Old Testament. Am I correct?
Yes.
But you seem to have come to some different conclusions since your first book. Why is this?
You see, in the Old Testament, we have, for example, a prophet with the name of Ezekiel.
Uh-huh.
Ezekiel writes in the first person. The first person is an eyewitness. And he describes why he was captured in Babylonia. He saw a vehicle coming down from the cloud. And he not only describes how the vehicle looked like, he even describes the noise which the vehicle makes. He compares the noise with the thundering of a waterfall. Then he describes that the vehicle made a landing. Sand was blown up into the air. And then he describes the legs, the wings, the wheels. They were out of metal, etc. So I interpreted this story of the prophet Ezekiel as an extraterrestrial vehicle, while theologians, they see it completely different. I have good friends in theology. As I said in the beginning, I was educated in a Catholic boarding school for 6 years, led by Jesuits, so I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The theologians, they believe that Ezekiel simply had a vision. He saw the God, the Lord, sitting in his chariot. So that's a different interpretation of the same text.
Okay. Now, you also talk about the Fatima prophecies in your book.
About what prophecies?
The Fatima?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think happened? What do you think your theory is?
That's a long story. I tried to make it short.
Oh, you've got plenty of time, Eric.
You see, Fatima was in 1917. And Fatima is a little village in Portugal. And there, 3 children had a vision. They believe that they see the Mother Mary, the Holy Mother Mary, because they were Catholic. Now, there are many apparitions in the world. Many people believe to have seen the Holy Mother Mary. But Fatima was completely different, because the figure, the Mother Mary, told to the 3 children that she will come back every month at the same time. All this started in May 1917. So it continued in June, in July, in August, etc. And of course, always more and more people accompanied the 3 children when they went out to the field. And in October 1970, nearly 80,000 people were there on the field. And then of a sudden, a gigantic disc came out of the cloud. A disc in different color came down, descending to the 80,000 people, and then made a stop and return again into the clouds. So that's only one thing. That was not a visions. We have black and white pictures made by journalists from that time, published in the newspapers the next few days. But also, the white lady, the mother of Jesus, has given a secret to one of these children, to the oldest one. Her name was Lucia, with the order that the Pope should publish this secret in the year 1960. That means between 1917, when it happened, and 1960, there were 43 years. So the secret of Fatima went to the Vatican. And in 1960, in October, the Vatican, with different priests and cardinals, etc., they opened the secret of Fatima. Now, the Pope said at that time to a journalist, I cannot publish the secret. It would create a storm. Later, a cardinal, journalists asked them, what is in the secret? Why don't you publish it? Has it to do with the next World War? Has it to do with this destruction of the world? Then the cardinal said, no, it has nothing to do with the next World War. It has nothing to do with the destruction of the world. It has to do with our faith. Now you have to understand, for the Catholics, the Holy Mary, the mother of Jesus, went up to the heaven with her body. So to say, Mother Mary, for the Catholic religions, is the highest female up there in heaven. So if Mother Mary has given the order in the year 1917 to publish a message in the year 1960, and the Pope doesn't do it, why not? He should obey to his highest mother in the sky.
Yes.
Why is he against the order and say, we cannot publish it, it would create a storm or it would create a panic? Because it was not the Mother Mary, the appearance. It was something extraterrestrial. But in the meantime, between 1917 and 1960, Fatima has become to a big pilgrim place. So millions of people are pilgriming to Fatima, and they adore and they pray to the Mother Mary. Now, of course, in 1960, the Pope understands that it was not the Mother Mary. Now, it is a fact he cannot publish this. It would really create a storm, because in between Fatima is a pilgrim place. It's all very complicated.
It sounds it. It sounds it. How come you take so long? I mean, how have you taken your time to investigate all this?
Well, I'm nearly 80 in the meantime. And I have a well-organized office, and I have so many people worldwide who always deliver information to me. You see, for example, in one of the books, I showed hundreds of cave paintings. Then a lady from New Zealand wrote me a nice letter. Hey, Mr. von Daniken, wonderful your book with the cave paintings, but in my country, just near the place where I live, are much more impressive cave paintings. Why have you not published them? So I write back because I don't know them. Then a correspondence starts. Then I ask, what do you local archaeologists say? I need pictures, etc. So the information comes from all over the world. And of course, I always go on place. I do never publish something which I have not smelled and touched and photographed myself.
Right. And Andy's asking, can we assume that you've been working on this full time for many years?
Yes, this is my job, including Saturday, Sunday. I don't know what I should do at home on Saturday, Sunday. I always go to my office. I have a gigantic archive with about 200,000 slides from archaeological places taken all over the world. And to me, my work is not a must. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. He says you're very lucky.
Yes, I am.
Now, the ancient astronaut theory is something my husband Steve here believes in. But why do some feel that they have to lie about what they say are facts?
Well, you see, our society, generally spoken, our society is composed of two groups of people.
Yeah.
The one group of people is scientifically educated. The other group of people has a religious education. Now, the religious people, they believe, and it doesn't matter which sort of religion, they believe that God made everything. God made the universe, made the planets, made the plants and the trees, but as the crown of creation, God created us, the humans.
Yeah.
The scientific group believes that everything took place by evolution, but we, the humans, we are the top of evolution. Now, in both cases, if you look at it from the religious side, crown of creation, or the scientific side, top of evolution, in both cases, we think that we are the greatest. Something greater as us does not exist in the universe. So first, we do not like extraterrestrials. We don't want them. It's a shame for us. We believe that everything that exists on planet Earth, including evolution, happens by ourselves. There was no help from outside. So we don't want extraterrestrials. We try to deny extraterrestrials as long as possible. That's simply human. I understand this. And I also understand the critics, of course. I mean, in the scientific community, you say, between the stars, there are light years. And it is not possible to travel with the speed of light, so nobody could have visited us, even if they exist. somewhere out there. This is the scientific point of view in astronomy. But in fact, in the meantime, we know it is possible to travel between the stars. We even know how it would work. I just don't want to explain it here. It takes too long. Or another group of the scientific community say, okay, we can accept that maybe there are life forms out there, but definitely these life forms would never look like us, never look like humans. Now, Mr. von Daniken, in his books, he says that these extraterrestrials, somehow they look like humans. They had arms and legs and knees and the face, etc. So the scientists say, this is all garbage. Again, generally seen from a point of view, this is correct, because evolution could have created incredible forms of life, forms which we cannot even imagine. But on the other hand, there is a theory called panspermia. Panspermia says that life was spread out in the universe in a certain section of a galaxy, and it all started because of these molecules, this panspermia. And again, in the old holy writings, not only in the Bible, in other holy writings too, it says God or the gods created humans according to their own image. If we look at it from the point of view of panspermia, then it is possible that extraterrestrials look similar than we, because we are simply the offsprings of them.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think they just say this to try and discredit it?
Huh?
Do you think they just say these sort of things to try and discredit it?
Of course, we always try to be the best. We try to discredit this as long as possible, but it will not help. We will live in a new generation, and more our brilliant astronomers will find other planets out there which are similar to our planet Earth. I mean, not too hot, not too cold, etc. And sooner or later, we will find the traces of life out there, definitely. Maybe on the next planet like Mars or something. I do not mean a high-developed intelligent forms of life, but at least bacteria, primitive forms of life. And then we know the universe is full of life. We are just one little part of it.
Could you do you think that this could be why your theory hasn't been investigated further by others?
Well, worldwide, in the meantime, we have about 100 authors who have published books in the same direction. Among these authors, there are quite some scientists who have the same feeling like me, but seen from a different point of view.
Yeah.
You in England, for example, you have a brilliant mathematician. His name is Professor Dr. Chandra Wickramasinghe. I don't know if you heard of him. He comes up with the panspermia theory, and he says definitely we are the offsprings of some other life from out there. There are philosophers, there are NASA scientists who have criticized first the theory of Eric von Daniken. In the meantime, they join the wagon. So the situation will change, but everything takes time. It goes slowly on this planet.
Yeah. Now, my husband wanted to ask a question. He's given it to me because he's across the room. He said, what do you think are the chances of getting the Egyptians to give their permission to conduct a proper scan and an investigation into Giza and the Sphinx to see if the library can be found?
Yeah, I am sure that the library does exist. And I know Robert Schoch is a geologist who makes these measurements, and there are rooms beneath the Sphinx. Also, by the way, there are much more rooms in the Great Pyramid and under the Great Pyramid. Rooms which some 10 years ago, everybody said it is impossible that they are there. Now, in the meantime, under the Great Pyramid, a new room has been discovered with water inside, and in the water is a sarcophagi. Now, Herodotus was a Greek historian 2,500 years ago. He already, in his second book of history, he said that deep beneath under the pyramid, there is a room filled with water, and in the water is a sarcophagi. Now, Egyptologists did not believe Herodotus. In the meantime, we know he was right. And so are many other rooms in the pyramid, which we know that they exist. We know it because they are measured electronically. Now, if you say, we know that there are rooms in the pyramid, why don't nobody goes in there? Because it is not possible. You see, the shafts which go into these rooms are so small that no humans can climb in there.
No.
You can only go in there by robot. And this is done. I have many pictures in the meantime in my archive where I know that robots were in the Great Pyramid. Yeah, mach mal.
Wow.
So it's all complicated, and slowly, you see, this all again has to do with the Arab nationality. The Arabs are proud that the Great Pyramids and these great temples are in Egypt. Especially the Egyptian nation is proud, and they do not want that there was some extraterrestrial help. By the way, it is not my opinion that extraterrestrials made the pyramid.
No.
The humans did it. We always made the dirty job. But the help from the mathematics, from the tools, from geometry, the help was coming by the extraterrestrials. But the work was done by us. So the nation of Egypt do not like to hear that they were not the only ones who created the pyramid, that there was some help from outside. They don't like this.
No.
It's just the human egoism. We are the greatest.
Okay. Right, Paul?
Eric, it's Paul again. Just a quick question. Do you still think that the Great Pyramid is older than it is said it is, and it wasn't built by Khufu?
Definitely, yes. You see, according to archaeology, the Great Pyramid was constructed by Khufu. Khufu is Cheops. That was about 2,300 BC, say roughly 4,500 years from now on. And Egyptologists believe this because they have very little proof. But the proof is not enough to support this. We have other indications. For example, in Old Arabian, there was an historian called Ibrahim Abdul al-Mas'udi. Mas'udi was writing about old Egyptian story, and he clearly says the pyramid was constructed before the Great Flood. Also, there is an old Egyptian writer with the called Al-Makrizi. Al-Makrizi also wrote about the Great Pyramid and said the Great Pyramid was constructed before the Great Flood by a king with the name of Saurit. And then he says Saurit is the same which the Hebrew call Enoch. Now, Enoch again is a story. Enoch was a personality which was taken up to the mother spaceship. Enoch learned the language of the extraterrestrials. He knew scientific methods from the extraterrestrials. They dictated him everything. And this is not an invention which just Eric von Daniken made. This is all written in the book of Enoch. He says that the teachers dictated him nearly 100 books about all kinds of scientists. So according to old Egyptian traditions, it was made by Enoch and his son. His son was the biblical Methuselah. By the way, Enoch disappeared in a fiery chariot. And there is another important thing which everyone can control. I said in the beginning that the Greek historian Herodotus was in Egypt about 2,500 years from now. Herodotus published 2 books about Egypt, history books about Egypt. And in his second book, you can control it, chapter 41 and chapter 42, 241, he says that he was in Thebes. Thebes is today's Luxor on the Nile. And there the priest showed him 241 statues. And the high priest explained to every statue a short story. So he told them who represented these stone statues. And at the end, the high priest said, these stone statues represent 11,340 years. At that time, the gods from the firmament were among the humans. Since that time, the gods have not returned. So this is written by Herodotus, the Greek historian. He's also called the father of history. Now, in archaeology, these dates of Herodotus were always ignored. I know of other old historians, for example, Diodor of Sicily, Strabon, Plutarch. These were all men who were all in Egypt more or less 2,000 years ago. And each and every of them, in their books, they give complete different dates compared to our today's Egyptology. In our Egyptology, the old Egyptian history starts about 3000 BC. But according to the old historians, it's about 14,000 BC. So there is a big discrepancy between the historians and our today's pseudo-knowledge.
Okay. Dave Lloyd is back. Would like to know if you think that NASA has a secret space program. It's said we already have a colony based on the moon and on Mars called Adam and Eve. Do you believe in that?
No, I don't know about that. I know for sure that the Americans were on the moon. I know the criticism. I know the stories where America is accused that they were not on the moon. It was all a fake. But I know some of the American astronauts perfectly. I knew shortly Mr. Werner von Braun. I knew other NASA scientists, and they are all very honest and correct people. None of them was a liar. None of them was a faker. I am absolutely sure they were on the moon. Now, if there is some sort of colony, I really don't know. I never heard of this.
Okay, and he goes on to ask, do you think the gods will return, and what do you think about
They will definitely return. Absolutely. You see, when the Spanish conquerors, that's around 420 years ago, when they first came to Central America, that was Hernando Cortés, the natives believed that Hernando Cortés and the Spanish were the expected gods. In the beginning, they all fell down on their knees. They believed that we, the Western people, were gods. Mm-hmm. The same thing happened in South America with Francisco Pizarro. The same thing happened in the South Sea with James Cook. You see, the British explorer James Cook, when he came for the first time to Hawaii, the natives believed that he was the expected god. So in the beginning, they believed he was a god. Later, they learned, of course, that he was not a god. So this idea of God to return is not an invention of Christianity. It existed long before Christianity. And what do we have today? I'm educated as a Christian. We believe that Jesus will return. But the Muslim society believes that their Mahdi will return. Yeah. The Buddhistic society believes that Buddha will return. The great Jewish community believes that their Messiah will return. So not only the old tribes who died out, still today in our living religions, we all wait. We all expect that some of the so-called gods or leaders will return. In reality, it was simply the extraterrestrials some thousands of years ago. They educated some of the humans. Some of the humans learned their language. One example is Enoch. And when they disappeared, when they went away, they promised to our forefathers, we will return in a faraway future. And this promise entered into the mythologies and into the religions until today. They will return. Okay. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why I do my job. It's better to be prepared for such an event than to be completely shocked and to be crashed down when it happens. And it will happen.
He goes on to ask, what do you think of Nibiru?
Well, Nibiru is, again, a story of Zachariah Sitchin in his book. Nibiru is a planet which should surround our solar system in about 1,600 years. I am not a fan of Nibiru because if we would have another planet in our solar system which is invisible, which we have never seen, our astronomers would definitely have measured it, because another planet, visible or not visible, would destroy or disturb our gravities in our planetary system. We would know about such a planet. We have never measured such a planet.
Okay. Of all the books that you've written, since 1968, or 66,
yeah, 68, okay.
Yeah. What was the one you enjoyed doing?
God, it's always the last one. You're always writing, and of course, with each book, you hope to become better, and you hope to make no and not the slightest mistake. So for me, it's always the newest book, which is the best.
Okay. Now, just before we go on to this other question by Andy, some would say when we die, we go back to our alien ship, which could be the heaven that the religions talk about. Where do you think we go when we die?
I have no idea. I am one of the believers that we will not die. I mean, our body will die, but we will continue. Our consciousness, or the religious say, the soul will continue. But I don't know where we go.
Right. And how has your thinking changed since your first book? And what do you think your biggest mistake was?
Oh God, there are many mistakes in the first book. You see, when you are young, you are very enthusiastic, and you believe everything, and you are not self-critical enough. So I remember in Chariots of the Gods, when I was for the first time in Egypt, I was 19 years old, and I was in Upper Egypt, and there is a little island in the Nile, and this island has the name Elephantine. And my guide at that time, he was a teacher in school in Egypt, he told me that this island has the name Elephantine because seen from the air, it has the shape of an elephant. Later, and I brought this in Chariots of the Gods. Mm-hmm. Later I learned that this was all nonsense. The island does not look like an elephant from the air. It is simply called Elephantine because elephants were living on the island. That's all. Or for example, in India, in Delhi, there is a wonderful temple, and in the center of the temple court, there is one metallic column. And this metallic column is not rusting. When I was there, that was in about 1961, it was still not rusting, and the locals told me, this is a metal which comes from out of place. It is not the metal which we have on Earth. I published this in Chariots of the Gods. Mm-hmm. I even showed a picture. In the meantime, this mad object is rusting. So what can you do? It was mistakes, misunderstanding, and many of these things happened in my earlier books, but not in the later books. I mean, at least from the fourth or fifth book again, I try to avoid every kind of mistakes.
Right. Andy would like to know, how do you feel about the Scientologists having hijacked your research and using it for their own religion?
Well, I'm not very familiar with the Scientology church. I know that they had a science fiction writer with the name of Ron Hubbard who had some ideas, but I really don't know their so-called Bible or their writings. I don't know much about them.
No, I don't. It's just something that he's come up with. He said something about that they seem to have hijacked your research and using it for their own religion or something. How would
I hope not.
Okay, that's how you feel about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've really gone through those questions, I must admit. He's just said they claim that we are descended from aliens, so they've taken your research and
yes.
You know, perhaps they're disagreeing with you at the end of the day. So at least that's another one that agrees with you. He goes on to say, and they funded the Ancient Aliens show that you've been on, apparently.
You see, the Ancient Alien shows. In the meantime, they have 100 episodes.
Yeah.
And with many of these episodes, I do not agree.
No.
Because it's not what I say, it's not what is in my books. I only stay for that, what I say in the episodes.
Okay.
And I know my knowledge, but many other ideas have nothing to do with my knowledge or my sort of science.
I see. Okay. But anyway, as I say, you've really gone through these questions tonight.
It's wonderful. By the way, I don't know. You are a radio station.
We're an internet show.
Oh, you're an internet show. Oh, great.
Yeah.
I hope many people watched and hear what I say. And again, I excuse for my lousy English. I have to learn much more.
It's going to be going out on YouTube, so other people, we get a lot of listeners on YouTube as well. But as I say, we do have people that listen in the chat room and offer questions for our guests.
Okay,
so,
great. Thank you for the interview. We'll come together sooner or later again.
Yeah, David Lloyd's, just a couple of more questions come up. David Lloyd says, how come years ago people were said to live hundreds of years, almost as if our DNA was upgraded? Do you know about that?
No? We live hundreds of years?
Okay.
Like in
the Bible, in the Old Testament, we lived for hundreds of years.
Well, in the Old Testament, before the Great Flood, we had 10 patriarchs. They call it patriarchs. And every of these 10 patriarchs, beginning with Adam, his son Seth, etc., then Lamech, Baruch, Methuselah, they all lived hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So we don't know if this is true, but at least according to the Bible, it is handed down like this. And on the other hand, you see, there is Sumerian cuneiform writings, and there is a so-called Sumerian King's List. The Sumerian King's List, by the way, you can see in the British Museum in London. It's a black stone, and the translation is next there. And there, the first 10 Sumerian kings also had incredible ages, just comparable to the 10 patriarchs in the Bible. So we cannot understand where these dates came together.
No.
Are they correct or not? We don't know.
This is it. Well, we're now in 2015. So what's next for Eric von Daniken?
I am continuing to writing. Of course, we try to make a lot of movies and shows, and I have some speeches worldwide. This year I will go to Brazil for a few speeches, to the North America, to Australia. I hope sooner or later someone in England will invite me, because with my shows you really see incredible pictures from archaeological places which are never seen on TV.
And I believe is it the Chariots of Gods that's been turned into a computer game?
No, not yet. But something like this is going on, yes.
Okay. And Ace Paradox has just popped in with the last question. Are there any mysteries you have investigated that you feel you have not found a satisfactory to?
Oh, yes. There are also many mysteries which I know from, but I never published it.
Right.
Simply because, you see, you have a scientist, for example, in Egypt, and this Egyptologist shows me something deep beneath under some temple. And before we go down there, we shake hands and he say, please, Eric, do not go to public with it. Yeah. So I keep my word and I don't go to public with it, because if I would go to public with it, the journalists would immediately realize, hey, this is a sensation. Then they go to the professor in Egyptology, and then he has to correct, and he has to say, well, Eric was telling a lie, or Eric was misunderstanding me, etc. And the whole friendship is gone. You never receive any more information. So that's why I myself know some things, some secrets, which I have not published until today.
Right, okay. Well, I'd just like to say thank you for your time. Ramon did tell us that you don't normally work on Sundays.
Okay. Well, thank you for your patience to listen to me.
That's okay.
Bye-bye. I have to run away here.
We would love to get you back on again and talk about some of your other books later on in the year.
Just make contact with Ramon.
I will.
For the moment, I have to run away.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
So I'm glad you enjoyed the show, everybody, and thank you for your questions. We always welcome your questions from our guests. Thank you, Aggie, for saying it's a brilliant show. We do our best. As I say, we are a relaxed show, but we try our best to bring people to you in the know, and so we can all learn, isn't it, Steve?
It is. Like we always say, being guests on, most of the time we know absolutely nothing about them until the week before, and then we do a bit of research, and we always learn something, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, we can always take something away from the program, can't we?
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks again, and till next time, all that's left to say is
keep the paranormal friendly.
Good night,
guys.